Welcome, folks. We're going to take a few seconds, let a bunch of you get in here first before we start rolling. I'm Anthony from Photocare. Welcome. Thank you for coming. So just bear with us for a second or three before we get started today. We're going to start with a little video quick. Then I'll do the intros for John Kreidler, and we'll get started. So just give us another minute or two, and let the number of participants kind of taper off, slow down, and then we'll get started. You always walk into the building like it's yours, acting like every little thing you do's a white horse. You got a way of shit, what everyone is thinking. Baby looking at you, so staring at the sun. Yeah, touching you be like holding a loaded gun. You got a way of making me feel my body shaking. All right, so we're about to turn it over to John Kreidler, who, if you don't already know him, he's a fantastic resource. He is the East Coast Product Specialist for Leica Camera, and amazing resource when it comes to technical expertise and everything. Pretty much, I would say 90% of what I know about Leica, I've probably learned from John Kreidler. The rest I learned from Jeff Hirsch here at Photocare. So I'm really excited to be doing another one of these with John today. Always brings some great info and some wonderful images. So John, thank you for coming with us. And why don't you take it away?
Great. Thanks, Anthony, and the checks in the mail. Appreciate it for that wonderful introduction. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the M10 family of products. As you know, we recently launched the M10R, the M personified, or the top M camera with 40.89 megapixel color sensor. So we'll talk about that a little bit. The M10 Monochrome and the M10P. So we now have kind of a small family of M10 products. When we talk about Leica photography in general, I like to frame it around finding your visual signature. So as photographers, we tend to see the world in a certain way, and we want our camera and lens to reflect that. So it's important to find a lens and a camera that allows you to conveniently and say seamlessly not get in your way, but really allow you to present how you see the world. So the M product for me is one of those products. So the M3 was introduced at Photokina in 1954, and it was revolutionary. It had a bayonet lens system, as well as an integrated rangefinder and viewfinder. So previous to that, all the lenses would thread on the body, and the rangefinder was one window and the viewfinder was a second. So you'd focus and then look and compose. So the M3 now putting those two things, rangefinder and viewfinder together, as well as now bayonet lenses, really allowed the photographer to work faster. So if we fast forward then to the digital age, we were tasked with something. Okay, so we needed to make a digital camera, but weren't sure initially what to do. So is it that we just make a digital camera from the ground up, or do we take the iconic M camera and through engineering and a lot of hard work, adapt it to digital? And that's what we did. And to me, it was really the only decision we could make, seeing as the M is such, and was then really an iconic camera, a camera that not only represented our brand, but also a company. A lot of times when you say to someone, you know, I have a Leica camera, immediately they think of an M body. So fast forwarding then to 2017 with the introduction of the M10, through a lot of engineering and design work, we were able to finally make a digital M body that was physically the same size as the film body. And again, this was a big, big deal for a lot of people, and it took a lot of work. So that said, it's our ability of this constant searching, I guess, for really constantly improving as technology evolves, but also maintaining the essence of the M. I have a saying that I like to say to people when they ask me about equipment. Basically, you date the camera body, but you marry the lens. And that's because of how, when you find a lens that renders the way that you see, it's yours for life. It's very hard to give that up. And again, that's part of the mystique of the M. A lot of photographers have looked back on lenses. A lot of the lenses that they like may date back to the mid-70s. And some of the remarkable lenses that Dr. Mandler had designed in the mid to late 70s, lenses like the 50 Noctilux f1 or the 75 Summilux. You know, these are two examples of lenses that have a very cinematic look, but it's how they deal with sharpness, how they deal with that transition between foreground, plane of focus and background, but also how they create the bokeh and how they deal with the emotional bits of the image. So that's all very important to Leica photographers. When we talk about the M itself, the M just has things that are essential. The M makes you work for images. You have to see it in your own mind's eye before you can get it in the camera. You're looking through a separate viewfinder. So you're looking at the world unfiltered. You can't see the depth of field. You don't see the personality of the lens. You have to imagine what that image is going to be. What I like about that is it makes me, as a photographer, think a different way and work a different way. Looking in the viewfinder, I'm seeing beyond the frame lines. I'm being more engaged. I'm looking for different subjects. A lot of times when I'm photographing with an M, I'm thinking and shooting in a different way. I'm looking for different things that I wouldn't normally look for, or see different things, probably a better way to say it, that I don't normally see. The M forces you to be close. You know, when you're out on the streets shooting, many people will dismiss you. It's a smaller camera body with smaller lenses. It looks like an old camera, and people aren't intimidated. It allows you to be more discreet, and if you want to be close, you're not intimidating people by having a big camera and lens. So again, it allows me to be more fly on the wall. I've noticed since I had my SL2 in November that I had been shooting more M lenses on it. And it really wasn't until I got a chance this February to shoot an M10 Monochrome for a week that I really realized how much I missed that M shooting experience. And part of that was the SL2 having more resolution. It's really tough to go back to, say, an M10P, and in terms of also dynamic range and color is different.
Speaking of dynamic range, John, there's
yes.
actually a question that came in from Bill
sure.
Kybers. He's asking, Bill asks, how is the dynamic range of the M10R compared to the Leica SL2?
Well, the M10R is actually at base ISO 15 stops, where the SL2 is, I'm going to say, right at 14 stops. So it is better, and it's by virtue of the sensor design. So that design is significantly different, and it's closer in architecture to the S camera than it would be the SL2.
Gotcha. Cool.
So, yeah.
And folks, if you do have any questions, just send them on through the Q&A portal and we'll get them answered as we go here.
Yeah, that'd be great. No, I appreciate that. So that's the one thing I've noticed, and even, the monochrome, while it has 13.5 stops of dynamic range, it's not limited by the color. And the images are, I find them much sharper than both on the SL2 and the M10R, because there's no bare filter, there's no color filter. That's also why you get this heightened ISO performance. So I'm looking forward to spending some more time with these cameras. So we can take a look at some key points of the M10R. The M10P first. So this has a very quiet shutter. So let me mic up this guy here. I don't know if you could hear that. Barely, right. It's pretty quiet. So that's now the same shutter on all three of those cameras, the M10P, the M10 Monochrome, and the M10R. What I like about that shutter now, I know people are going to say, okay, well, the other cameras have an electronic shutter that is completely silent. And while that is true, there's something about this shutter that's very quiet, but you still feel it. And to me, again, that's part of this M experience. You're actually feeling the shutter release. It's just, again, an observation. So the M10P being the P model, there's no red dot. There's script on the top. It's 24 megapixel. And it's, the iconic size and shape. So here's some images that I've shot with my time with the M10P. So here at you're at a garden party, and again, I don't know that I would take this type of image with any other camera, but sometimes when you're at a party, the most interesting thing is the lighting and the lights. So something like this, I just really like, the areas that are sharp and in focus and how that transition goes. And again, it's just really, to me, very interesting to see, particularly with the 50 Summilux, just how the lens actually performs. And a lot of times when I'm shooting, I'm looking to push in certain situations to see how these lenses render.
Hey, John,
so here,
I've actually got another question in. It's in the chat instead of the Q&A, so I didn't notice it at first. John Feingold asks, well, first he says, and then he asks a question. I used to shoot a lot of Kodachrome in my M6. How is the color palette of the R different?
My first impression was that the M10R was very much like shooting Kodachrome right out of the camera. Okay. It's that kind of color. It's really, I have some images. I haven't shot it per se, but I've got proof of performance images that you can take a look at. Even with, what's interesting, I've seen images from our marketing product person, Antonio. He shot some with, I believe it was his Elmar lens, 3.5 centimeters, so 35, right? And I was like, wow, this reminds me of Kodachrome in like the 70s, what I remember of it. Just the look, it had that look with that, particularly with that lens. Here with the P, with a 75, just, doing some street photography, handheld at a 15th of a second without a stabilizer. Again, I find that with the M, I can usually, it does depend on how much espresso I've had, but, or Cuban coffee in this case. But in general, I'm usually good to a 15th of a second, like with a 75. So again, just looking at this, to me, what always strikes me is I'm looking at the light, looking at the lighting, looking at a lot of times either backlight or highlight and shadow are things that, particularly when I'm shooting in M, I just feel attracted to. So again, here's some friends that were hanging out at the Hive in Wynwood, probably late one night, and just how, here with the 50 being in close, and taking their photograph. I mean, they knew I was there, but I'm still able to capture this this image that kind of it tells us I think it tells a story about how they are and they're having fun and they're together as friends. But there's an emotion to it, and again, I don't know, I wouldn't be able to capture that with a camera like, say, like an SL2, something that's going to be physically bigger, that's going to demand a little more presence just by being there.
So John, we've actually got a couple more questions that just came
Yeah,
in.
sure. Sure.
Stephen Podransky asks or says, the 50 Summilux is a spherical. The Summicron is the APO version, correct?
Well, yeah, the 50 APO is a Summicron F2 is like the granddaddy, I mean, it's that is our lens designer Peter Carver. I would call it the chestnut. That's like where everything he learns kind of came together, and everything since then has really been, in one way or another, the technology has been based off of that. The Summilux is aspheric, correct, and not apochromatic.
Great. So I've got two more. Dan Simpson says, one of the challenges of higher resolution sensors is that they tend to be less forgiving in focus. Common advice is to shoot at slightly higher shutter speeds. Would you have that same recommendation, or does focusing on M series lenses make that less of an issue?
Well, I guess there's a couple things. One is that when the M10 came out, we don't really ever talk about this, is that we've made refinements to the rangefinder itself, where it's manufactured within tighter tolerances, and it's actually focuses lenses more accurately. What I've noticed, and most of my experience at high resolution and M lenses would be on an SL2, which would actually be more resolution than the M10R or M10M. And okay, sure, it has image stabilization, but what I've found, even with the M10M, is I was still able, again, depending on the caffeine level, to shoot at what I like a 15th of a second. I think I have an example of one that's it's sharp. It's not to say, is it Andre Bresson, Cartier-Bresson's sharp, or is it like clinically sharp? It's, again, I mean, to me, it's hard to say because I really haven't done enough testing. Personally, my experience has been, if you pay attention and you steady yourself and you're paying attention to your breathing, I think that's true, that you could actually use, a 15th of a second shutter speed. It also depends on where you're coming from, because if you're used to using a camera with a stabilizer and then try something without a stabilizer, you're going to need that instead of 15, maybe 125, until you condition yourself to it. So hopefully that kind of answered it.
If not, I'm sure he'll ask a follow-up, because you're more than welcome to ask anything you want. Yeah. Got one more from Mehul Patel, and I apologize if I didn't pronounce that right. For a newbie to the rangefinder world, what is the most reliable transition way to achieve focus? Zone focusing or live view?
Well, I guess I would do a couple things in terms of exercise. First, I think what's important is learning the focal length of the lens. So a lot of people, when they're starting out, they just have one lens, whatever that is, 35 or 50. Or in my case, my first lens was a 75, which is like, people are like, really, 75? Like, why would you? I mean, but it's what I like and how I see. So anyway, so to kind of play a game with yourself, you say, okay, I want from, here to here in focus. Where do I have to stand to get that compositionally? That's one great exercise to start with. When we talk about focusing, again, zone focusing to me is a lot of fun, and I've done it shooting, and I have some examples of zone focusing, setting your lens at f8, and then within this frame of from say 3 feet to 12 feet, everything will be in focus. So I think zone focusing definitely has a place. Live view, if you had a VisiFlex, like a small viewfinder, I think that's helpful. To me, using live view on the back of the camera is more difficult than using a rangefinder. So I guess it really depends on how you want to shoot. So if you wanted to shoot wide open, you have to practice the rangefinder and how it works and how it sees. The other option would be to get very good at distance calculations just by looking. And the interesting thing is, I've worked with a number of photographers, and they become like this built-in tape measure. Oh, that's 6.5 feet. So it's, I guess that's a good consequence of shooting a rangefinder and being able to focus. So I would say zone focusing is good. It's a quick way of shooting, and you just figure out what works for you in terms of a distance. But if you really want to shoot wide open, I'd say you either need a VisiFlex to then use like an EVF, or get really good with just practice with the rangefinder.
All right, that's what we got for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, sure. So here's this is the 50 Noctilux, okay, and even though it's at shot wide open at 250, there's parts of the image that are sharp. This lens to me it's not going to be 50 apo sharp. It's not going to be like razor sharp. But to me, when I look at an image like this, what I'm feeling is kind of the sense of, early morning. Here's some guys cleaning up Wynwood after a Saturday night of partying, and, they're already exhausted. But it's just kind of telling a story, and it's the emotional feel of the image. So again, here, this was in a place that sells props. And I just happen to have an M camera I'd like to carry with me. Sometimes it's a fashion accessory if I don't take any photos, but it's a camera, again, that you could take with you anywhere and find kind of these interesting, quirky things. And again, like with an SL, I don't know that it would, I wouldn't carry it because I couldn't conveniently fit it either in a jacket or under a coat. So it's, again, it's just presenting more opportunities to shoot. So here in South Beach, again, in low light, where the viewfinder, there's no obstruction. You're not worried about your EVF gaining up enough to be able to see to focus, and just basically being able to use the headlights of a car behind this Lamborghini. And to me, it's this whole thing of light and shadow and finding it, but being able to actually use a camera to get an image like this in a situation where an EVF isn't necessarily the best tool. So this is one of those F8 and B there. This is in Chicago, not recently, obviously, where they had these. I guess it was near the Bean, if anyone's familiar, and they had this kind of little water area set up where they had these two walls of LEDs that would show pictures of people, and then they would spew like water out of their mouth, and kids would run under it. And it was just kind of thing where I just thought, wow, that's really cool. And just F8 and snap, and it was done. So this down at the Memorial in New York, again, being able to have a camera where this might have been like a day or 2 days before one of the anniversaries, and just being able to go in there and just be respectful and just kind of see images. And again, to me, what just struck me was, again, just kind of the light and the shadow of the image, and just being able to create something like this. To me, it's more symbolic of kind of what was going on there that particular day. This was probably in DC. Again, just watching people as they come and go on the elevator. I think we were waiting for the funk parade to begin, which I guess didn't happen this year. It was last year. Again, just a lot of fun to photograph people as they're living their lives. And again, not really drawing much attention to myself. I mean, these people probably didn't even know I was standing there or had the camera leaning on the ledge. So it's just, again, an M camera allows you to get those kinds of images. Again, in DC, and I was talking with Anthony earlier, how strange it is going through my hard drive and looking at images where you see, masses of people not wearing masks and just kind of enjoying life, and really reflecting on how different, times are now. But again, just, with an M, having it conveniently to shoot. And again, this was another F8 image, and just kind of get the sense of the day and what was happening. This was probably a weekend day, and people were gathering around the Lincoln Memorial. But I just like how it rendered. For me, I have some silhouette. There's not, obviously the light was not great, but the clouds are really interesting, and the color. Yeah, I guess this was probably early spring, maybe, where we have some color. So again, it's just one of those images to me that reminds me of a story. And again, there's nobody really looking at me. So again, it's just kind of fun. So
John, I've got another question
go.
from Mehul Patel. He asked, or she asked, I'm not actually sure, what are the principal differences between the Summilux and Summicron optics?
Well, all the Summiluxes are going to have a maximum opening of 1.4, and the Summicrons would all be f2. So it's hard to speak in generalities. Other than that, I find the Summicrons in general are sharper, and that is probably because, let's say, the 50, the 75, and 90 are all apo lenses. The Summilux, what's interesting about those lenses, to me, it's almost like getting two lenses in one. When you shoot it wide open, it can have this really wonderful and perhaps dramatic bokeh. And then you stop it down to f2 or 2.8, and in many cases, it tames down. So again, even within a certain lens, you can have different looks based on whether it's shot wide open or closed down a few stops or even down to f8.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep, sure. So again, in Brooklyn, I didn't really talk much about this. So again, Brooklyn, to me, all right, so this I shot at 1/25th of a second. You see some of the motion in the bride's gown as she's walking, and the photographer is kind of shooting, and I'm just kind of documenting this whole scene. To me, it just has again, it's telling a story. I like the dramatic lighting, and it's basically just street lights. And again, just saying that if you're making that conscious effort of slowing down, which is what the M does so well, it really forces you to slow down, to think, to see, and then as you're shooting, take your time and click, and not necessarily chimp straight away, just to hold the camera until it's captured the image. It'll make you a better photographer. Again, same kind of thing, although at a 2/50th of a second. Again, kind of the light and shadow thing, low light shooting. Again, I don't think I'd get the same kind of results from an EVF. It would be, I think, a little too distracting. Where in with the rangefinder, I'm looking right through the glass. I'm not looking through the lens. I'm just seeing the world unfiltered. This was up in Maine, just a cute little photographing someone's handiwork. So again, just these lenses can have multiple personalities, really depending on what the light's doing. So this obviously was probably later in the afternoon, a little more diffuse lighting, but just really like how the image is rendered and kind of the color and how it renders the color also. Okay, so
actually,
that was
another question just came in before we get to
go ahead.
technical. Stephen Podransky asks, how do you think the 28 Summicron will render on the SL2 or the monochrome? Will it still have a little of the magic, or will it lose some due to the resolution of the sensors? And he follows up with new version, which I guess means the lens.
Right. Yeah. So here's what I've noticed is that those lenses, as resolution increases, that signature.
Not Summicron. I misread what it
Summicron?
said because I'm the Summicron, the 5.6.
Yeah, the Summicron. That's right. Yeah, that was my assumption, because that was one of the vintage lenses that we recently re-released. And I've seen images from that on the M10R. I don't think anything from the monochrome. What I would tell you is this: as the resolution increases, that let's call it the lens signature, is actually a little more pronounced. So it's not that it's taking anything away. We're doing all we can in terms of manufacturing between what we're doing with the sensor and with the profile to maintain or improve that. So that particular lens, again, is one of my coworker Antonio's, one of his favorite lenses to shoot, and he shot quite a bit. Some images that we were looking at the other day from the M10R, and it had the same magic, and to me it looked even more so, like more pronounced. So
I've got another one from Dan Simpson. I'm currently shooting a Sony, which allows me to magnify an image 12 times, get more precise manual focus. If I buy an M10R and the 50 APO, what advice do you have on how to achieve the best focus?
Well, the first thing I would try is see how you do with the rangefinder. Uh, but to me, I think if you're looking at really trying to get the most precise focus, you're going to need the VisiFlex to do that. So the little LCD viewfinder clips on the top. What's cool about it is it's hinged. So if you want to do look at a 45, you can, or at a 90, you can. So that's what I would say, particularly if you're going to shoot wide open. And to me, that's the only way to shoot those lenses. To really achieve the Leica look, which is that creamy sharpness. It's that very three-dimensional looking image. So hopefully that answered it.
All right.
All right.
Keep going.
So, all right. So let's we'll go into the M10 Monochrome. So again, it's a 40.89 megapixel sensor. Base ISO is 160, which the predecessor was 320. Max ISO of 100,000. And you can do a long exposure up to 16 minutes, but it still requires that secondary dark black capture to help reduce artifacting. So again, it has the same thing, same design, same shutter. So one thing that's kind of unique with the M10 family is I can adjust shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and focus all with the camera turned off. So there are companies that do 3, but nobody does all 4. So again, that allows you as a photographer to kind of be prepared and get ready before you're lining up your subject. You're getting ready, and you don't have to have the camera turned on to do that. Was there a question or?
Yeah, there's actually 2 that just popped up.
Okay.
Mehul Patel asks, do you anticipate an updated higher res version of the VisioFlex coming?
Well, we don't talk about products that don't exist, unfortunately.
Understood.
So, it's hard to say. I'm sure there's been talk about it, but we don't really talk about it.
Gotcha. Blake's Lens asks, I have an M and an O-through extension ring. Is there a way to get the focus peaking to show when shooting with the extension ring? I'm not sure if the extension ring is aftermarket part or not. I'm guessing it is.
Yeah. I know. See, I've used the M adapter or the M macro adapter, and focus peaking shows up with that. It might be that you have to, you might have to stop down to see it better. But it should.
You're saying the O-through ring is a Leica product. Shouldn't have it.
Yeah, that I'm not, to be honest, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
But if you want to get your info to Anthony, we can check it out. I can see what I can find out for you.
Yeah, I'll put some website links and some email links in the chat in just a second. So if you guys have any questions about sales or support or anything from Photocare, you can get in touch direct, and I can Blake, I can get that question to John, and we can figure it out for you. Says it allows for macro on his 50 lux.
Okay. Is it like a filter that threads on, or it's not like an L Pro?
I'm not sure. He hasn't responded on that, but he can email support and we can get him the answer.
Yeah, awesome.
It's an M mount extension ring, is what he says.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, I use the M macro adapter L, which is a variable extension ring, and I get focus peaking on it. I mean, the only drawback to that is it's designed really to work with the 90 macro lens, but so it puts that profile in. So depending on what lens you're using, there could be issues with that profile. So here with again the monochrome, and again I'm looking a lot of times when I'm shooting the monochrome, I'm looking for texture, I'm looking for other kind of other things that I wouldn't normally look, like color, obviously. So this was at a train station, kind of this architecture where you get these great shapes, great light and shadow, even on this gloomy day. But again, incredibly sharp lens. I know on zoom, you can't really see the full resolution, but the images of the M10 monochrome are definitely incredibly sharp. Again, same idea, looking at geometric shape, looking at light and shadow, particularly with the M10 monochrome. And again, here kind of an Alan Schaller moment of a security guard popping out from the 1000 Museum building. Units are available if anyone's interested in Miami area. Really close to the American Airlines Arena, like across the street. So here's a shot I took with the M10 monochrome, again at a 15th of a second. And while it's not razor sharp, it is, to me, it's telling the story of this crazy guy. It's just probably 8 o'clock, 8:30 at night here in the park, where there's at South Point, there's only some overhead lighting, and he's like hanging on this rope, walking and trying to balance on it. It was just crazy. And he had some friends that were doing, gymnastics in kind of the same area. And again, just kind of even here at a 12th of a second, you can see movement within the image, but again, it's giving that that emotion, that atmosphere that's helping tell the story. We're only seeing these little bits of or blocks of light. So again, what's a Leica presentation with at least one image of pigeons? It kind of goes with the territory. This was in Little Havana near Domino Park. Someone had just thrown out a bunch of bread, and I kind of got down really low, obviously, and just set my focus and shot away. And again, I'm a pretty big person, and having a small camera, people just dismiss me a lot of times. People dismiss me all the time anyway.
Stop.
But here's some people playing in Domino Park, and what I was struck with was this is exactly how I saw this image, where just this one little ray of light on this woman, and it was kind of going on her dominoes pre-COVID, but still with hand sanitizer. So maybe she knew something. But anyway, and just how the shadows render, and I could bring up shadow detail and get all that, but to me, I like the mystery. I like the story of the feel that that image gives me.
John, I've got another one from Dan Simpson.
Okay.
He and I like this one because it talks about the Leica look, or it asks about the Leica look.
Okay.
So he says, I borrowed a friend's M10P with a 50mm last week and used a rangefinder for the very first time. I was very impressed with the image quality, and the images did have a different look and feel. I don't know how to describe it. You have mentioned the cinematic look to Leica images. What is it that creates what appears to be a unique Leica look?
Well, to be honest, I think it's a couple of things. One is lens design. So the lenses that we've always kind of designed our the design philosophy is they're designed to perform optimally shot wide open. So that's counter to just about everybody else who feels, well, our lenses, we want them the sharpest at whatever the middle is, maybe f8, maybe f11, or maybe f5.6. So that's one. The M lenses in particular are all hand assembled. They're hand polished. The glass itself, I believe each element is coated like 14 times. It's coated and polished and then measured, coated and polished and measured. So the variant, or the level of precision in terms of manufacturing is like insane. So again, that's part of it. It's another big component is our sensor design. That sensor is designed to optimize the native optic. So we're doing all that we can to ensure that you're using M lenses on an M body, you're going to get that look. I always describe it as kind of that transition between plane of focus and foreground background that creates the three-dimensional looking image. What I see from Leica images more than anything else is that three-dimensional quality, particularly when shot wide open. So all those things kind of contribute to it. And I know the next question I'm going to get is, what about M lenses on SL2? And what we've done is we've created profiles that allow those lenses to have a very similar look to how they look on the native body. But it will be, it is slightly different because of how the M body is designed, and particularly the sensor itself. It's a very highly engineered, patent pending technology in the development of that sensor.
And Dan, to circle back about your question about how you zoom in, Bill Kybers actually mentions in the chat, the VisiFlex in combination with an M10 setting will allow for auto magnification of the image when the focus ring is moved. So if you like zooming in,
he's right.
That's something that can absolutely be used to help you out.
Yep, because it would zoom. I think the default's 100%, and then it could be dialed back with the thumb ring.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So how are we doing on time?
It is currently 2:49.
Okay, good. All right. So let's we'll talk about the M10R briefly. So again, a 40.87 megapixel sensor, color sensor, same body, a lot of the same specs, but base ISO is 100 and max ISO is 50,000. So here's some images from our proof of performance, just to give you an idea. So here, a strawberry, you're looking at a very small area, and again with the 50 Apo Summicron, which is one of our sharpest lenses. But you can see the detail on the leaves of the strawberry, the seeds, and how that looks. So it's very impressive. And again, that's in the center. If we go and look at this image, we're in the bottom part, again, with the same lens, but we're seeing the same kind of sharpness at a really dramatic crop. And again, to me, the color is really, it's very rich. So here to give you an idea of dynamic range, let's see if this works. So this was the image, the raw image taken just out of the camera, and then in processing, having the ability to, again, bring up detail. So at 15 stops of dynamic range at base ISO, to give you an idea, that puts you in what I would call the medium format range of dynamic range.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, if you start to think about it, well, an M10R is going to give me a lot of that functionality of a medium format camera, but in a, a much more compact design. So it's really very, very interesting. So here's an image. This was taken by a British photographer in Wuhan in, I guess, in London. He was shooting during COVID times with the M10R. And again, I mean, to me, the color is just like bananas. I mean, what would you call it? I mean, it really is. I mean, Kodachrome, although this reminds me more of Velvia. I don't know. What do you think, Anthony? Any thoughts on
I'm
the?
actually right now on probably the least color accurate monitor we have in the store, sadly.
Excellent.
So I can't talk about color on this one right now.
Okay.
But
All right. All right.
I'll
We'll
look at
move
it on
on.
an ASO later.
Okay. There you go. All right. So again, just doing some street photography when an M, the majority of M's are used for, and just the ability to capture color, this moment. Here's this family out for a stroll, masked up, ready for action. But I mean, really, really nice color. Again, another example, just great color, but also, with just the texture and the feel of the image. I really want to see more images or take more images of people with the M10R. But again, that's been a real challenge in these times. We talk about lots of challenges, not only from photography, but when we, bring out new products kind of in this time. It's just different. So here at, I think looking at the detail, not only in the shadow, but the bright light and how sharp the image is. And here, just some wrap ups. And if you have any more questions, be happy to take them. But in general, the M10 family as a group of cameras provides a true rangefinder experience. Shooting an M is going to allow you to feel more engaged in your photography. You have to become part of the scene. You're going to you'll see beyond the frame lines, and you can work more simply. It's a camera that won't get in your way and allow you to see photography, I think, in a different way. You can set your focus, your aperture, your shutter speed, and your ISO all without turning the camera on. So you're in a better place to be when that decisive moment happens to you. And I think shooting an M would also help you refine your visual signature. So if there are any more questions, be happy to answer them for you.
Looks like as of yet,
Or
there
order
are
yours
none.
today, right?
I'm actually gonna throw a slide up, John. Just
Okay.
a little closing. Let me see if I can find it.
You want me to stop my share?
I can do it because I'm
okay.
running the thing.
Gotcha. All right, great.
All right. So we, as always, want to thank everybody for coming. We really enjoy putting these on. The webinars that we started kind of came as a result of what were we going to do during quarantine. And so we started running these from our homes. So the first time John and I did this, I was in my teeny tiny office, hoping that the construction that was happening outside wasn't popping through. But you can always contact Photocare. We've got a couple of different emails. There's the sales at Photocare if you're interested in purchasing something. If you want to rent, we've got rental@photocare.com. And if you need support, technical support, want to get a question over to John that we weren't able to address today, just email support@photocare.com. It comes directly to my inbox and John Schlesinger's inbox, and we can get it addressed and help you out with that. As always, our website is photocare.com. And then we are always gonna have some new things coming up. This doesn't fit exactly right. Our next round of webinars, we've got some September Tech Tuesdays coming up. It's going to feature Sony Video Bootcamp Series. September 10th, we've got Narbox from Field to Studio featuring Richie Myers. If you are familiar with him, he's Digi Richie on Instagram. And you can always find our events on the Photocare website. And again, we just always want to say thanks for coming. I think I see something flashing down here, so there might be another question. Hang on. There is. Nope. You're welcome, everybody who said thank you for the session. We
Yeah, it was
really
great.
enjoyed
Appreciate
doing
it
this.
very much.
Yeah, yeah. So
It was great being with you.
It was always great having you, John. This will be recorded. It'll be up on our YouTube page either the end of day tomorrow or Monday, depending on how quickly we're able to get that turned around. So thanks again. Thank you so much, everybody, again. And we hope to see you on the next one. Thanks, John.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe out there.